All right, it is the weather model discussion here for Monday, September 19th, 2022. How's it going, everyone? William Cole here in the Storm Studio. We're getting this on a little late today. We typically try and do these around 3 p.m. and today just running a little bit late. It's Monday. We've got a lot going on here in the Storm Studio. And so again, this is kind of our bonus content, right? This is not our typical weather programming. We're not necessarily going to be using any of our pretty TV graphics, right? This is when we like to just go over the raw data and talk about kind of, again, behind the scenes, how we're putting the forecast for the day together. And again, typically here, we just put this on our social media. So again, this is not for everyone, but again, a lot of folks do find this pretty interesting and potentially even beneficial as you're beginning to plan out your week as well. So let's go and dive into the data. We do have a lot to talk about. I've got a couple things showing up in the tropics. We know about Fiona, but even though this may not necessarily be North Texas related, there appears to be something that tries to spin up and may even impact parts of the Gulf of Mexico in about 10 days. So this is going to be new information. We'll talk about that coming up. Otherwise, it's all about, believe it or not, the summer heat dome. It built back in, and as we begin, like we typically like to begin, looking at the 500 millibar chart or the mid-levels of the atmosphere here, the one thing you'll notice, the big bubble, right? The big donut hole right over the southern plains and parts of the deep south. That is an area of high pressure, typically what you would see in the summer. Again, this looks more like July and August in North Texas than it does the middle parts of September. So again, with the area of high pressure in control, sinking air, it means dry weather. It also means temperatures above normal. And this is going to persist, or it will continue through at least this upcoming Saturday. But I think we've got some changes on the way for Sunday. I'm going to show you those. In fact, a storm system that is currently out in the Bering Strait, out around the Alaska area, will eventually bring weather changes to us here in North Texas. Again, more on that coming up. So otherwise, looking at the visible satellite review here, we have nothing showing up as far as precipitation goes, right? It's a clean sweep of radar. We've got the sinking air, but we've got just enough humidity out there that we're able to bubble up a few fair weather clouds, right? With the sinking air, they don't go up very far, right? So we're not talking about the big cumulus clouds that could go on and maybe produce some rain or storms with the right conditions, right? These are just kind of the fluffy, fair weather cumulus clouds. And again, because we've got the sinking air, they just really can't go up whatsoever. And so again, you're just kind of seeing the little white splotches showing up there. So again, we'll call it partly sunny to maybe even at times partly cloudy. But again, overall, we'll call it hot. And again, we'll call it humid as well. As we look at the surface chart here, so we've looked at the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere. We looked at what's going on again as far as any cloud cover or precipitation. The other thing we're always looking at here, it is the surface chart. This is temperature and moisture and wind direction. And because we've really got a southerly and southeasterly component to the wind, all the green coming up, that's dew point or humidity. And it's coming right up out of the Gulf of Mexico. And as you know, really beginning yesterday, more so this morning, even as we've gone through the day today, if you've been outside, it is humid out there. And we've got temperatures in the lower to mid 90s here in the Metroplex, 92, 93. You get outside of the humid air up in Oklahoma. There's some locations up there. In fact, Tulsa's currently 99. The Bartlesville area up in Oklahoma is currently 100. So they're sizzling hot there because dry air warms a little bit easier, right? So they got a boost on their temperatures because we have, even though the feels like number is a little bit higher here, the humidity's kind of put the brakes a little bit on our temperatures. But again, a typical high this time of year would be right around 88. So we're still running well above normal as far as where we should be, again, temperature wise. Okay, from there, let's go and take a look at the potential for any kind of active weather. And again, this is just the convective outlook here from the Storm Prediction Center, any opportunity of severe weather. It's up in the northeast today, parts of the New England area, again, mainly with the wind threat up there. Also new, they've added in parts of Wisconsin and Michigan, kind of the upper Midwest there. Similar story, could be some rainstorms with an opportunity of some wind over 60 miles per hour. That would mainly be later today. As we get into tomorrow, similar story right in the Great Lakes region, Wisconsin, back into parts of Michigan. That's where the storm track is, right? We talked about the ridge of high pressure over the southern plains. It's pushed the jet stream well to the north, which typically this time of year, the jet stream is still fairly well to the north, so this is not unusual. But again, that's why they're getting the active weather, simply put. That's where the jet stream is. And then we'll also look at day 3 here as well. And as we do that, similar story, all the active weathers to the north, marginal to slight risk there. And again, could be some wind, could be some hail coming out of the Great Lakes region, pushing there into the Rust Belt up into parts of the Northeast. Again, obviously you're noticing here in the Southern Plains, we are completely quiet with that area of high pressure and control. Otherwise, we've got our eye on Fiona. Now, she has strengthened some as we've gone through the day. Her winds are now back up to right around 100 miles per hour. And the latest forecast here moves her up to a major hurricane just a little bit sooner. So she'll be our first major hurricane of the season, meaning Category 3 or above. And again, the very latest here from the National Hurricane Center, it appears as though sometime tomorrow, late in the afternoon, they're now forecasting her to become a major hurricane. The good news is she stays well out to sea, away from the continental United States, may come into contact with Bermuda. So again, we would watch that. Obviously not necessarily U.S. territory, but could be a major hurricane, unfortunately, moving through the Bermuda area. And that would be most likely between Thursday afternoon and Friday afternoon. She's going to begin to accelerate to the north, so she'll move through there fairly quickly, but again, like I mentioned, could bring Category 3 type hurricane conditions to the very small island of Bermuda. Not good. Okay, so I want to do this quickly just because we always try and at least keep these fairly well condensed on time. Some of the data yesterday, especially the American model, began to advertise something spinning up in the Caribbean and moving into the Gulf in about 10 days from now. The European model, which we're looking at here, the better performing model, right, is now also beginning to advertise that too. So I'm going to just kind of roll you through the next several days. Number one, again, we're looking out here in the Atlantic. You can see Fiona lifting off to the north. There she goes. In fact, she gets kind of caught up in an area of low pressure, a storm trough, and gets pulled well off to the north. She's gone, no longer an issue. But take a look at that area of disturbed weather coming just right there off the tip of South America, moving through the Caribbean. And here we go, 8, 9, 10 days on down the road, moves into the Gulf, moves right over towards the Florida Panhandle. And again, obviously tropical, something a little too early to make the determination, but the latest data here is supporting hurricane status on that, maybe even major hurricane status. It's a long ways on down the road. Don't get too caught up. It's not a guarantee that happens. And if it does happen, it's not a guarantee either. It moves over towards the Florida Panhandle. Could even occur further back to the west, something we would need to keep our eye on. But again, if that were to play out, this scenario here, again, the one thing to keep in mind, that would be the first tropical system that comes into contact with the continental United States this season. I mean, this has been at least on the East Coast, right? And believe it or not, in Southern California, again, we had K, which again made contact again just about 2 weeks ago. But where we're typically worried about the kind of the bigger tropical activity on the East Coast, this would be the first system to touch the East Coast this season if that does play out. But that could turn in to a major weather story in about 7 to 10 days on down the road. So something we're going to keep our eye on for sure. Just obviously not locked in where it could even end up in the Gulf. Okay, so from there, let's come back to our weather here locally. And what I want to do is I want to just similar chart here. This is still the mid-level chart, 500 millibar. And we're looking at our current area of high pressure, our summer heat dome, and we're looking for any storm troughs or areas of spin that may come through, bringing cold fronts or bringing rain chances. And I'm just going to run you forward in time because I can tell you, at least here in the near term, the next 3 to 5 days, that summer heat dome is locked in. It's not going anywhere. We're going to be well above normal as far as temperatures go. But as I go back, watch this little area of disturbed weather way up by Alaska, the top left-hand corner of the screen. Let me go and roll this back in motion. And that storm trough that Alaska, believe it or not, there it is down into the southern plains. That same storm system, again, way up in Alaska, will sweep down. It's going to push a cold front into our area. It's going to beat down the area of high pressure. It shifts out to the west. They're going to get hot out on the west coast, but that's going to bring us some heat relief. It's also possibly going to bring us some rain chances. The other thing that's really key to this, as it pushes back that area of high pressure to the west, that's if that tropical system were to form, that's what's going to make a little bit more of the Gulf of Mexico available for it to move through, right? if that area of high pressure was still centered where it was now, it would definitely deflect that system off, most likely through Florida or well off to the east, right? But as that is back to the west, there's nothing to really deflect that system. So again, it's not impossible. Again, all these weather pieces have to come together just perfectly that system could even be a little bit further over to the west, right? So at this point, we're just guesstimating, we're just kind of talking about things, but one of the reasons why that tropical system we need to watch. So even though, yes, we will get some heat relief, the heat dome goes out to the west, tropical wise could maybe cause some problems, okay? So we're going to watch that. So this is just the 850 millibar. This is just off the surface, right? This time of year, you like to look off the surface, look for any true air mass changes with these cold fronts, okay? So we'll go ahead and roll you through this over the next 10 days, still looking at the European model here. And there it is, we're hot, hot, hot. But there's that front. You can see it beginning to take shape to the north. There's storm trough number one. There's actually two troughs that come through. That front does not make it into North Texas whatsoever, but it's really this system. There's the front right there. And again, you can see across parts of the really Great Plains, central northern plains, definitely some cooler air. Even up into the Midwest, take a look at some of those blues showing up. That's a real air mass change there. But here in North Texas, again, you can see there's the heat dome being beat back out to the west, and there's that front coming on through. And again, you can see some of the greens, some of the yellows showing up there, where again, yes, we will turn, we'll call it less hot, but really typically about where we should be, right? We're generally talking about some mid 80s showing up at that point. I want to look at rain potential here as well. And again, we'll just do this here locally, just going through the next 10 days, looking for any rain opportunities here. And as we do that, again, just kind of slowly but surely, we'll get this to Sunday, and there's Sunday. The model still, I mean, you can see with these global models, the one thing you have to remember, this is not a future radar product, right? This is, you have to take away from this the signals, right? It's forecasting for North Texas the same way it's forecasting for Antarctica. So it's just showing us in a 6-hour snapshot, are there any signals of rain anywhere in North Texas? You can see a few splotches showing up. So the signal is there that yes, we could have a couple isolated showers or thunderstorms with that front, but it looks spotty. It does not look very widespread. And so what that equates to on my 12-day forecast is a 20% opportunity on Sunday of, again, a couple isolated thunderstorms, but it most likely appears as though that front's going to come through dry. And even outside of that, over the next 10 days, just simply put, nothing showing up as far as rain. I mean, we're lucky. We had a couple weeks where we got rain in August, because outside of that, I mean, this year has just been bone dry. So here's rainfall totals from the Euro over the next 10 days. And look at that, it's everywhere. I mean, it essentially keeps North Texas dry. There's rain all around us, but it essentially keeps us dry outside of the, maybe that 20% opportunity, again, as we get into Sunday. So we will get some heat relief, but we're not going to get much in the way of rain chances. And what I want to do, this is different now. We're kind of taking the data we just looked at, and we're condensing it down now to numerical form. This is the Euro data, and the Euro, I forecast off of this to a certain extent. I look at this and I kind of blend it with the Blenda models I'm going to show you. The Euro is showing by this upcoming Monday that front is going to bring a high temperature in of only 83. That's probably a little too cool, but it's in the right frame, right? We're going into the mid 80s by this upcoming Monday. But before then, the Euro by Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday is forecasting highs up near 100. Now, I don't necessarily think we're going to be quite that hot, but what I want to do, I want to come over here to the Blenda models. And this is truly what I forecast off of, right? This is a product from the National Weather Service. It takes all of the weather models, it weights them on how they perform, and then it spits out these numbers, right? So you can see we're going to be in the mid to mid upper 90s. I think this is probably a little more accurate, 97, 98. I just don't think we're able to get to 100 this week, but it's going to be downright hot. Again, all the way through Saturday. Sunday, here comes the front, and by Monday, this is advertising 87, 86 on Tuesday. I think we'll be somewhere in there. 86 to 87 sounds about good to me. And then you can see going forward with that heat dome out to the west, temperatures stay about normal, right? A typical high by that time would be right around 87. So again, without the heat dome directly over us, again, we go to kind of a normal pattern of about where we should be. But again, unfortunately, we just don't see that rain chance showing up, which again is something we really do need. So that's where we are, folks. Again, I don't want to keep talking on here too long. Again, I know we kind of got to get on with it here. Like I said, I think we've been on for about 15 minutes. So we're trying to get these down to about 10 or 15 minutes. There's just so much info we want to go through. But again, like I mentioned, thanks for watching this. Give it a like, a thumbs up. Again, if you're watching it on Facebook or on YouTube. And again, also, if you have any questions or comments, be sure to list those below. And again, we'll try and talk about any questions or comments tomorrow as well. Again, otherwise, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your Monday late afternoon and early evening.